What's up, gays, straights, and other things? It's Mally. I'm back with another episode of Lady in Mystery. Now, it's been a hot second since I picked this up, but if I recall correctly, we are still on the revenge route, and Hisu is starting to set that plan in motion, so let's get back on into this. It's been 4 days since I sent the letter to the Ministry of Justice. As I expected, the Ministry of Justice couldn't make any decision and kept debating over and over. They couldn't come to a conclusion easily about whether they'll reopen the case or not. And that time becomes a valuable time for us to investigate more about Jung Pyung-ho. For a few days, Woo-sung and I scrutinized all the information about Jung Pyung-ho. After we found out his name and his position, too much information poured in off of a sudden. Jung Pyung-ho, 45 years old. He was a translator. He first came to Hanyang 20 years ago, and it took quite some time for him to become a translator. And there was nothing much after that. He had nothing in his life, so he even did manual labor to make money while studying. And that experience became a hindrance to his success in his career. He remained as the bottom rank official for a while, and then he got to go to Qing with the ambassador group. And it seems that he made a good connection there. After that, his name was removed suddenly, and he started to take temporary jobs. I went to all the departments he was in and asked around, but nobody really knew much about him. They say it was hard to talk to him even though he was there for years. And they also said his servants died often of accidents, and he changed his servants quite often. He kept going out at night, but no one could ask anything from him. One day he came back with a scar on his eyes, and it seemed like it was by a sword. Sometimes some people that looked like high officials covered their faces with their fans and came to see him. And then he would almost crawl and come running to greet them. He married a young orphan girl from a fallen Yongbon family a while ago. His son just turned 4. He has a wife and a kid. I thought about it again and I shook my body out of agony. He killed my family so easily, like he chops the bundle of straw, and now he's having a wife and raising a child? He made my family beheaded and even displayed their heads in the middle of the street for a long time. Then he should have done something bigger. He could have all the money in the world or be in a really high position no matter the social status. Whatever's ambitious. But what? Getting married and having a child? My gosh, he couldn't have made me more miserable than this. I felt suffocated for a while, and I couldn't calm down easily. At that moment, I made up my mind again. I don't care if I end up dying. I just can't forgive this guy at all. Woo-sung rushed into the tavern from outside. Jung Pyung-ho! They got him again! I went there to see it myself. The Ministry of Justice did it? Yes, and they put the poster on the wall. They said whoever sent the letter should bring the evidence within 3 days. Woo-sung shouted, "We did it," and closed his eyes. I could hear the rustling outside as if someone just grabbed the broomstick. As I came to sense and turned my head, there was Sayeon standing outside the door. Oh, hi, darling. Sayeon looked at me with a perplexed face. Sayeon seemed a little skinnier than the last time I saw her. She came here alone without Park Wong-sam and didn't know how to start the conversation. She kept giving a sigh, sitting on the bench, and then asked me a question after a while. Are you the one who sent the letter to the Ministry of Justice? Yes. I figured. Sayeon lowered her head again. Wait, why are you crying? Then I realized what she was worried about. If I sent the evidence to the Ministry of Justice, then she'll get into trouble for not destroying the evidence properly. I'm not going to send the evidence. It's just the letter. I'm not going to do anything to make you in trouble. I quickly calmed her down, but Sayeon didn't seem like she heard what she wanted to hear. She rather got surprised and shook her head. What are you talking about? It's so wrong if you just stop it just because you were worried about me. I came here to ask the opposite. What? I came here to ask you not to worry about me at all. What? I can just get scolded for my fault, but if you lose the suspect, we can't catch him again. Please, send the evidence to the Ministry of Justice. Even if they interrogate me, I won't tell them that I gave the documents to you. Please, trust me and send them to... Suddenly, I didn't know what to answer and got speechless. I was just doing the revenge for myself. I didn't send the letter to do the right thing like she thinks. But Sayeon still thinks that I want to catch the real suspect. Okay, I'll take care of it. Just know that I sent the letter and went back, and you shouldn't come to this tavern ever again. It's dangerous." Sayan answered with a discouraged voice and bowed. Then she asked me with a curious face, "By the way, where is Lady Juhi? Why isn't she here?" "I sent her home. She can't live with her brothers forever." I just answered whatever popped in my mind and turned around. I was so busy lately that I haven't thought about her at all, but suddenly all the memories flooded in at once like the wave. "Please, don't do what you were planning to do." She used the voice when she suddenly came back and asked me not to do it came across my mind. I felt weird in my chest looking at Makwa running across their yard. "Also, Woo-sung and I are going to leave this tavern soon. We've already finished packing up. Keep it to yourself." I made up my mind at the same time I told her. I feel like I can't be close to anyone. I feel like they'll get involved in my problem, and I was afraid that I might accidentally hurt someone. Hurting someone around you doesn't have to do with what they do. It happened when my family died. Anyone can just die for no reason just by being close to someone. And Sayan was stunned by the sudden declaration and opened her eyes widely. "What? You've never said anything about that for 5 years. How come so suddenly?" "Don't tell Inspector Park yet. If I got too busy and couldn't say goodbye to him before I leave, you should deliver the message for me. Tell him I'm really grateful for everything he's done for me." Sayan didn't know what to say and kept looking at me. Then she had to just get up not to draw attention. The back of her walking away looked forlorn. I took away my eyes from Sayan and went into the room where Juhi isn't staying anymore. I was organizing the room for a while since it became a mess with all the documents. But I could barely find what I needed in that room. Jung Pyung-ho replied faster than I thought. I dug up the letter from the designated place. As we told him to do, he wrote a reply right under our letter. He didn't even hesitate. It's like lying has already become his habit. Jung Pyung-ho's message was short. "I got confused at first since you didn't introduce yourself in the letter, but after thinking about it, I found out who you are within days. I'm so glad to meet my friend's child again. I feel like I'm meeting my own nephew. I want to see how you've grown up. I've been regretting it a lot. I'll confess everything if you want, and I'll go anywhere you want. Don't send the evidence to the Ministry of Justice." I crinkled the reply and tossed it in the box where the other evidence is. This is the new evidence now, and it's half confession. But as soon as I read the letter, I couldn't help but feel itchy and disgusted. My friend's child, my own nephew, regret? Every word he used was so disgusting. It almost felt like he was mocking me. "I think he's doing this on purpose." Woo-sung opened the letter and put it in the box again properly. I could see the blackmail letter we sent in the first place. "It is the right thing to do to send all the evidence that proves that you are the main suspect of the Adipokiri case and get you executed at once. But I'll give you another chance. Confess that you falsely accused Lee Unsu 5 years ago of treason and confess who you were working for. Then I'll give you a chance to leave Hanyang and have a new life with your family." I tried to write in a calm voice, but I couldn't completely hide my anger. And it was even more ridiculous that Pyung-ho's letter, pretending to be friendly, was right below it. Jung Pyung-ho said he already knows who I am. Then he would have known that half of what I said was just the bluff. If what Jung Pyung-ho really wants was to clear himself from murder charge of the Adipokiri case, then it would have been much better for him to just stay in the Ministry of Justice. Someone in there will have his back, and all the evidence coming to the Ministry of Justice wouldn't harm him at all. It would rather be a good chance to get rid of them. But he asked us not to send the evidence, and he said he would confess. This was a clear signal. He knew that I would come get him someday as long as I stay in Hanyang. He decided to get rid of me without any hesitation. So, he decided to meet me for any reason. As soon as he got released, I'll send all the evidence to the Ministry of Justice, including his reply. And within that short period of time of him not knowing about it, I'll put an end to this, while he can't think of anything. And I stayed up the whole night. All I could think of was to get him and make him pay for what he's done. It never felt real, and I've always just imagined it in my head. But when I actually got a reply from him, I couldn't calm myself down. It was much harder and sadder than I expected. The morning hasn't come, and I kept killing him thousands of times in my head while lying down, covering my face. Right after the house got fire, I heard that my mother, father, and my brother were arrested and transferred all the way to the Supreme Court in Hanyang on carts for months. With one vague reason that they might be involved in treason without any evidence, they had to go all the way over there without being able to eat or drink properly. While crossing the mountain and chasing my family without seeing their faces, I became drained little by little every day. No matter how long I walked, I couldn't catch up with those carts. It was so far to go to Hanyang through the mountain road, avoiding getting chased. Woo-sung and I crawled up on the rock every day, so our nails were pulling off, and we had to chew raw rice to alleviate our hunger. But even while doing that, we thought everything was going to be fine once we got to Hanyang. I believe that once my parents and my brother get the trial, they'll be found innocent and get released right away. I thought it was all just a big mistake. But when we arrived at Hanyang, the carts we were chasing were already going back. What happened? The carts didn't even get into Hanyang and just went back? Without getting trial at the Supreme Court? I think they were found innocent on the way here. Maybe they were sent home. No. Then why would they still be in the carts on the way back? They should have been nursed back to health before being sent back. Something's weird. So weird. I got this bad feeling about it, so I went back along the big street, crying. It hasn't been long since we started disguising our identities, so we weren't afraid of anything. Then, in the middle of an unfamiliar village, I saw 3 beheaded heads. Woo-sung started to throw up even though he hasn't even eaten anything, but I didn't even throw up. I just froze, watching my family's heads with their eyes closed. I got frantic and started asking around, but no one knew anything. They just told me they beheaded them after getting the order from the king. When I asked them who delivered the king's message, they said it was a yangban in pitch black clothes. They just believed it when a common yangban, not even the officer from the Supreme Court, just came and lied about the king's order, but they said they thought it was real since he came with Supreme Court soldiers. And I was too young to know better at the time, so I didn't doubt it. I just knew something was wrong. My whole family died in the middle of nowhere where there's no one they knew. People would never know what happened to the arrested accountant in Busapli. They would just accept it as it is. And no one in Hanyang knows what happened to them on the way back. Not even the king knows. Since all the family died, there's no one to feel unfair or to complain. Everything was over very quietly. As soon as I figured out the situation, with the fear and the feeling of helplessness, I crumbled. Even while I was running away after putting down my family's heads from the poles, I kept crying. Clotted blood and decayed skin were stuck on my hands and my clothes, but I couldn't think of any better way. I cried so much that I couldn't even see properly, but soldiers were chasing me from behind to catch who stole the heads. I had to be chased for taking care of my family's bodies. Why? What did I do? I kept thinking while crossing the mountain, but I couldn't figure out anything. I heard that God is in the mountain, the sky, and the water. I heard that he punishes bad people and rewards good people. So why do I have to suffer this much? I was so exhausted that I was so ready to admit that it was my fault and give up if someone comes to me and tells me why I deserve this. I can put up with the misery, but there's got to be some reason I'm this miserable. Ever since I realized that there was no reason at all, I hated the world in a second. Let's get revenge. On the way back after burying the beheaded heads, Woo-sung told me, from that moment we got the reason to live. Let's go to Hanyang and find that guy. Then 5 years had passed. I felt so devastated that I couldn't even lie still and kept flinching like a bug near the fire and just waiting for the sun to come up. I kept thinking of Zhang Pyong-ho coming out of the Ministry of Justice, him coming to me and talking to me blatantly, and I kept thinking about how I should set him up to put him in jail. For the first time in my life, I wished I was smarter, and I kept thinking over and over. Finally, the morning has come after the endlessly long night. I barely had breakfast and got out of the tavern. I bumped into the little beggar running across the market street. When I saw him, he was familiar. He is the one who gave me Zhang Pyong-ho's coin. Considering the direction he was coming from, I think he was on the way to see me. He kept pounding his chest as if he felt frustrated, and finally he could talk. Help me! Then Woo-sung noticed something was wrong and grabbed the little beggar's shoulder. What happened? They all got arrested to the Ministry of Justice. For stealing the property of the Ministry of Justice. Stealing? What did they steal? I wasn't sure about what I just heard and kept looking at the beggar's face. Little beggar kept crying and shaking his head. Everyone was arrested. 2 of them got beaten to death while getting arrested, and everyone else was arrested. He kept rushing me, saying they're all going to die. Did you not use the 5 nyang I gave you? You did, right? I gave you 5 nyang to you to buy the paper for the nobbies. Did you just jump over the wall and take it without paying them? The little beggar got frightened and just looked at me. I couldn't believe this. 5 nyang! It's 5 nyang! Where did you spend all that money? Why did you steal their property? We've been starving for too long. We were too hungry, so we bought the chicken and share. I don't get it. It's not like you bought like hundreds and thousands of chickens. How? It's in our hut. We were going to use it later. I felt like all the blood got drained from my head. And you're asking us to help you? You freaking bastards! Don't you have any morals? We shouldn't have trusted you. Woo-sung punched the little beggar in the face. The little beggar screamed and spat out blood. Woo-sung grabbed his head and threw him down and then kept kicking and stepping on him everywhere from waist to his chin. Well, I can't say it was that little beggar's fault. I knew that, but I couldn't think of stopping him. I was dumbfounded and just stared at the air. Dangerous. What? We're in danger. We have to run away right now. They must have told on us and told them where we live. At the same time, the sound of metal clanging and the clatters of the horse's hooves was getting closer. When I got frightened and looked away, I caught eyes with one of the policemen from the Ministry of Justice. There they are! Get them! You son of a bitch. The last thing I saw before running away was our tavern knocked down. We couldn't take anything. After running away through the familiar mountain road, I leaned against the rock and I felt suffocated. I kept thinking of Makwa crying in my head. The tavern we've been staying for years are going to be gone because of us. Why did I ever trust other people again? I gave 5 nyang to a group of beggars. They could have gotten half of that money. They could have just asked me to give them more. I would just give them as much as I have. But at least they should have done what I asked them to do. Just for that money. Just for that money? I tried to help them with a complicated case without getting paid at all. But they took all the money I gave them without sparing any money. People are all the same. Money? What's the point? Idiots. You're all going to die now anyway. I leaned my forehead against my palms and looked up. I took out the things from my sleeves. There was only a bundle of coins in my father's old pocket that I took from my old house when I ran away. It's a shame that we had to leave all our clothes, books, and evidence, but at least we got the money. The corner of the pocket I haven't opened for quite a long time was worn out. When I first checked what was inside, it seems like it was all just meaningless random stuff, so I didn't open that pocket again. I didn't think I could handle that terrible feeling. But now, I just open again with half out of desperation. It's the same as the last time I checked. A list of luxury items that I don't know the meaning of, a list of people written in cursive, and 2 boat tickets that could take you away from Chosun and to another country. My father wasn't collecting any luxury items. Also, why did he even buy the tickets to Qing when he refused to live in Hanyang because he liked living a cozy life in a small village? I didn't even want to know. I'm sure he bought it for someone else. He was helping all the worthless people, and then in the end, he invited Zheng Pyong-ho, thinking he was a friend. And my father got betrayed by him. I threw the pocket away. Then I burst into tears. Woo-sung, I can't do this anymore. I can't try anymore to clear my father's name. I mean, why did he have to trust all sorts of people? It's his fault. Everything was so wrong from the beginning that there's nothing I could do in the first place. My lady. Woo-sung looked up in agony. I don't care about anything else now. I have to kill him. As I made up my mind, suddenly I feared nothing. The situation was worse than ever, but suddenly everything seemed so simple to me. While we were running away for a few days, Zheng Pyong-ho got out of the Ministry of Justice like nothing. Us being chased in Zheng Pyong-ho case is not related, but they still released him with the excuse of us. It was almost funny. Zheng Pyong-ho knew who I was, and he reported me to the Supreme Court. Since they started to get suspicious that I'm a child of a traitor, I'm disguising my identity. Not even the Ministry of Justice, but even the Supreme Court started to get us. At that moment, I knew that every single place I've ever been will be destroyed completely, and even the grass around it will be dried up. It leads to Western Village if we go down the mountain road. It's not far from here to Zheng Pyong-ho's house that we found out a while ago. I'm sure that the Supreme Court soldiers will be guarding his house right now because they would be worried that I might come to his house. That's not the problem at all, of course. It would be scary if I didn't want to get caught, but I don't even care if I die or not at this moment, so that didn't scare me at all. Woo-sung was closing his eyes and nodded. Okay. I didn't even have to say anything else. I stopped hiding there and got up. The money we saved so far didn't mean anything at this point. We spared a few jeon and bought knives, string, metal hooves, and axes. I sewed some thin cloth under my sleeves and made a handle so I could hide my knife. The Supreme Court soldiers were replaced by some policemen to guard Jung Pyung-ho's house. And they weren't right in front of Jung Pyung-ho's house, obviously. What kind of idiot would go into the trap set up for them? And when we waited in the dark for the day, the number of policemen dwindled in half. Woo-sung and I were lying in the bushes and waiting patiently for our time to go out. It was hard to put up with all the wild mosquitoes biting our arms and legs, but we put up with it by covering our bodies with dirt. I've been watching the house so far, and I've noticed that the wall in the back is quite low and there's a door on that side. I saw servants going in and out of that door. After all the people were gone at night, Woo-sung and I started to make our move. We walked across the dark and went to the door we saw earlier. Policemen were all sleeping or too far away to see. Woo-sung put the metal hoof on the door and broke it at once and made a chink. It was locked inside. A woman passing by saw us, but she didn't care since it had nothing to do with her and just walked away. Then, someone gasped from the back. When we looked back, a guy who seemed to be a servant in Jung Pyung-ho's house was looking at us with frightened eyes. Woo-sung put a finger on his lips and tried to shush him. Quiet, if you want to live. He persuaded him like that with his eyes, but the servant just tried to scream. So, Woo-sung ended up smashing the head of the servant with the axe that he wrapped with cloth earlier. The servant fell down with a scream. Woo-sung gagged a little at the blood and then spat on the ground. This is what you get for serving the wrong master. In the meantime, I put the metal hoof inside and unlocked the door. The door opened with a rattling noise. Woo-sung carried a fainted servant inside and put him in the corner and closed the door. The inside has been separated from the outside again. The house was so quiet. While going inside, only the sound of Woo-sung's and my footsteps were ringing loudly in my ears. I'm sure the actual sound wouldn't be this loud, but my feet were getting faster. The inside was barren but spacious. There weren't that many servants. While I was walking, my heart started to beat irregularly, and I started to be out of breath. From that moment, I started to run and almost slid into the main room. I was out of breath so much that my eyes started to get warmer. Woo-sung jumped on the wooden floor and opened the door. A woman and a little kid were sleeping inside, and I got surprised at Woo-sung's footsteps and got up. Surprisingly, humans can feel quickly when they are in danger of death and be awake right away, just like I did 5 years ago. Quiet, if you don't want to die. I've never felt Woo-sung's voice so low and intimidating. Where's your husband? In the room right across. Woo-sung tied the woman right away. He muzzled her and put a blanket on her, and he was about to do the same thing to a kid. Then we noticed that the kid was crying quietly. He couldn't make any sound because he was afraid that we might hurt his mother then, so he just kept shedding tears quietly in fear. The boy's eyes were full of confusion and fear. He looked so miserable like a beast, shaking the whole time while being tied up by Woo-sung. Only those who were being harassed without knowing why could make that kind of facial expression. For a moment, I felt suffocated as if I went back to 5 years ago. Should I kill the kid? And then as Woo-sung said that, the boy freaked out and pushed the floor with his feet. He tried his best to get further away from us, but there was nowhere to run away, so he just looked up at us. No, we should save the kid. The little kid is innocent, like I was. And I bent over and got closer to the little boy. You should come find us to pay us back when you grow up. Enjoy living in pain. We only dragged the woman out and locked the door from outside. The room across was completely dark. Given that he's sleeping in the main building, he must have spent time with his wife here after putting his baby to sleep. When I opened the door, the room reeked of warm alcohol. Jung Pyung-ho was so drunk and sleeping on his stomach, and he couldn't open his eyes easily. When we threw a fainted woman to him, then he screamed and got up. Who's this? Jung Pyung-ho pushed his wife away heartlessly and got out of the blanket, looking at me and Woo-sung. He looked at us over and over, and then dropped his jaw with amazement. You are that bastard servant. And you look so much like Unsu in Guy's clothes. You've grown up so much in 5 years. I've always thought that you might be alive, but I've never thought that we would ever meet. I'm so surprised that this coward has been with you the whole time as well. Last time I met him, he was shaking like a stray dog and got the money from me. Woo-sung got the money? What is he talking about? Then, before Jung Pyung-ho even finished his story, Woo-sung came at him and started to strangle him. You bastard! Shut up! Why? Am I wrong? How dare you even think about coming here? Ugh! Die! Die, you piece of garbage! Pyung-ho turned his head toward me with his neck strangled. He started to think that he was really going to die, so his grin vanished. He scratched the floor and talked to me in pain with a pale face due to the lack of blood. Help me. Fuck you. Then a woman got up from the back and tried to smash Woo-sung's head with an inkstone. Without a moment of thought, I just came at her. I unconsciously swung the axe I was holding. The axe bit was stuck in the chest of that woman in an unrealistic shape. As I took my hand away from it and stepped back, I felt like something slipped out of my brain. Jung Pyung-ho was covered with blood next to her. He used his wife's death as an opportunity for him to get out and tried to escape that room. Gah! Woo-sung was a little faster, however. Woo-sung, who was lying on the ground, snatched Pyung-ho's ankle like a beast. Jung Pyung-ho, who was grabbing the door handle, fell down, bumped his chin on the floor and got dragged like a dog. When Woo-sung flipped Pyung-ho, his teeth were all broken from when he bumped his chin and covered with blood. I realized that there was no turning back. Not at this point when I saw the woman was already dead. If we just go back, then the murder charge of his wife will be added to our other charges, and Pyung-ho and his son will just live fine and well. When I thought about that, I couldn't put up with it. Our lives had come to this point all because of you. I caught eyes with Woo-sung, and I knew that I didn't even have to say it. Damn, is there anyone outside? Anyone? Pyung-ho was screaming, then he suddenly gasped and stopped. Woo-sung pulled the knife out of Pyung-ho's neck. Let's go. When I opened the door, being almost out of my mind, I think I faintly heard a kid crying from the room across. We ran off the floor right away and kept running and running to avoid the clatter of horses' hooves. Everywhere we go, people started screaming at us covered in blood, so we had to go to the stream in the middle of running and wash it off before running again. I don't know how long we've been running, and at some point as my body dried up, I started to have chills. We sat down on some unfamiliar alley and caught our breath for a while. It only took a second to kill a person. I could still feel that weird and blunt feeling of the axe getting stuck in a human body on my hand. I kept gagging for a while, but then I was afraid that someone might hear us, so I held my breath. I think we can manage to get out. If we run a little more and get out of the capital, then we will be safe. Woo-sung frowned, breaking an arrow stuck on his arm. We heard the policeman running around from a distance not that far, so we ducked down behind an old box. Please don't come this way. We were going to go out and run again as soon as the footsteps got further away. After waiting for a while, I could see some torchlight passing by, and then suddenly the sound of footsteps started to get closer. Is it 2 people? 3? I concentrated on the sound. It's 1. Woo-sung's eyes became ferocious. If it's just 1, then maybe we can take care of it. Please just go back. Just go back. The shadow of a person in torchlight kept wandering around the alley. Then suddenly, that person threw the torch in the puddle to turn the light off. Sayan?